Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, 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 boy. I had the weirdest dream last night. Oh gosh. Oh boy, that was weird. Oh man, I dreamt that I was riding through space, through this weird space on a potato chip. And I was gliding along and I was skimming across this I don't know, it looked like chocolate sauce and made this, as the potato chip skimmed, it made this noise sounded like it was a bunch of, like I was skimming across the chocolate, just underneath were a bunch of puppies. It was the weirdest sound. So finally the thing came to a stop. I dug down into the chocolate, and underneath there was this whole world with like a factory with all the noise going on in the factory. It sounded really loud like this. And it was a factory where they made these voice boxes for bears that didn't have their own voice. It was weird. I mean, that's, they're producing these things to help handicapped bears who didn't have a voice. So I went up to the manager, and the manager didn't have a head. He was holding his head in his hands. But I spoke with him, and his voice was very low because of that. And he asked me why I was there, and he asked me another question about myself.
Why is your face so round?
And that was it. I turned back and I looked at my reflection in the glass, and my face was completely round, and my head was round like a globe. And then I leaned forward, and I felt my head bounce, and it made this noise.
Bounce.
And the noise was like an onomatopoeia or something, because I was bouncing, and it was making this noise that went bounce. It was very strange. Then what happened was my head came back to normal, but then my body shifted. My body became kind of like a balloon, and I floated up, and it made this weird noise as I floated up. And the people on the street were pointing up at me, and they were saying all different things like,
I like chicken.
And then another person said,
I messed up on fourth down.
And then another person looked at me and said,
Wow, this person is so weird.
And then someone took a slingshot, and they shot, and it hit me in the leg, and it went, and I and I flew around in space, and it sounded like this. And it was quick. I laid into the ground, and when I hit the ground, I made this noise like this, right in front of this man. And he looked down at me very seriously, and he said,
Oh my God, what are you doing here?
And I told him I rode on a potato chip, and it was a long story. I really couldn't go into it. But then he helped me up, and he said,
Give me all your money.
And I had no money, so there wasn't anything I could do. So we had to go to the bank and use the cash machine. So I went to the bank, and then I realized I didn't have my wallet with me. And so I couldn't do anything to help him. I turned around, the man was gone. And I looked in he was gone, and there was a crowd of people standing there, and one of the people in the crowd stepped forward and said,
You look like a chicken.
And I didn't take it personally because, I had a hard day and I was ready for anything. And so then this noise came out of me. They were right. I looked like a chicken, and I was feeling like a chicken, and all of a sudden I started to make this noise.
Clavicle.
And then I made it even louder.
Clavicle.
And then I made it even higher pitched. And then I finally purged it from my whole system with one big, loud,
That's me.
and I relaxed finally. And then I looked over, and there was my potato chip with a driver's wheel in it. I thought maybe if I got in here on this thing, I could get out of here on this thing. So I sat on the potato chip, and I started it up, and it made this sound, the engine sound of the potato chip.
Sports.
Which is an odd noise, but then I realized I'd hit the horn instead. And then I started up again, and it made the engine sound.
Boo, 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 boo.
And then I realized there was a baby in the back seat making little gurgling noise, and so then I said, well, wait a minute, where's your mother? And there's mother was sitting right next to him, and she said,
Hi.
And I said, hi, how are you? And then I woke up. And when I woke up, my mother said,
Oh, it's time to get out.